Okay, here we are again for the last, down the final stretch. And Robert has, as he usually does, brought my flaws to my attention. But I asked him to, so thank you. And there are no classes next week. This class will not be in session because of the Easter play. And I think you probably all heard the policy for the Easter play. So there is no class per se, but you must have got it. So just read it in your mailbox. I'm sure you got a notice in your mailbox. No?
No, as of yesterday, we didn't.
Okay, so it's supposed to be. I don't really know how it works, how it could work perfectly, because this class, you are here because your schedule allows you to be here from 8 to 10. But if we say, instead of meeting here for the class, we'll do, invite people to the play from 6 to 7, well, you may not be able to be here from 6 to 7. So I guess I'll translate that to, if you can make it, then there'll be outreach to hand out flyers for the play to get people to come, and I think that's from 6 to 7. So if you can make it, come on out. But if you can't, you can't. So, and also on the syllabus, week 12, it says Thursday, 4:10, Children in Crisis. That's today. Homework, read Collins chapter 11. That should be 11 because 12 is down at week 14. So, instead of reading chapter 12 twice and skipping 11, it would be good to read chapter 11. So that's a typo that Robert noticed. Thank you, Robert. And so that would be chapter 11. So no class next week, okay? And then after that, we've got just a handful of classes left to the end of the semester. And we're still waiting for it to get warm out. I don't know what's going on with the weather. Okay. Okay. All right, so great. And then number 4 is helping children cope. So how can we, all right, we are with a child or children who have been traumatized by some unfortunate event. Their little lives have been turned upside down. Their safe world is no longer safe. It creates anxiety. They feel vulnerable. It's affected their behavior. Maybe now they're wetting their bed. Maybe there's regression. Maybe there's not wanting to be away from mom because of this. So how can we help? So here are a few points. Establish a routine with the child, because children need a routine. They need their boundaries. They need to feel safe. It's kind of like the invisible fence, and they feel less vulnerable. Routines provide a child with a sense of security and safety, although this may not be possible depending on the traumatic experience. But if possible, get them back into a routine. Explain to them, this is what we're going to do, and then after that, this is what we're going to do. And so there's some sense of normalcy. Provide the child with physical contact, meaning express affection to the child. Children love to be held. Most children love to be tickled. They like to play. And it's just fun. Come on now. Aren't they fun? Children fun. David didn't do this, but Christina would do this. She'd do the Cato thing. Yeah, I was Inspector Clouseau, and she's Cato. And I'd come in. Of course, I know she's there, She'd be behind the chair. Yeah. She'd jump out. I'd go, not now, Cato. Yeah. And, of course, she was relentless. So I'd just throw her on the floor and spin her around and tickle her. And, it was just wild. But it was just fun. It was just pure fun, after school and after work. And it was just great. So, not now, Cato. No, she wouldn't have it. Okay, anyways, it was just so much fun. Hey, I'm just saying, kids are fun. They are precious, priceless. Wow. Let's get some kids in here. Don't they just change the whole atmosphere? I mean, you get kids and it's like, okay, that's where it's happening. I mean, that's the real world. Children. A world without children? Oh no, that can't be. It cannot be. Remember what God said? Fill the world. He said, be fruitful and multiply. Some theologians say that's the only commandment that we've obeyed. Married or unmarried. Okay. And then provide the child with physical contact. Hold, hug, express affection toward the child. And this point is important. An exception is if the child has experienced sexual abuse. He still needs affection, but it should not be done in a way that reminds him or her of the abuse. So that is extremely important. Allow the child to play. We've already talked about this, but it is worth repeating. And because the child needs a break from those strong emotions that can come in like a tidal wave at times. And it gives them a sense of control. They're in control of their little play world. She can play with her dolls in her dollhouse, and he can play with his trucks and make the sound of the motor, and he's back in control. And that's healthy, and that's healing. A child may gain mastery over their environment, which is good. Allow the child input into non-critical family decisions. I mean, let them have a buy-in in what's happening. Okay, we got a free hour now. What do you want to do? Can we get an ice cream? Yeah, we can do that. Okay, off we go, buy an ice cream. They feel like they have some, control over the environment, and that's also very positive. The author says, give them a flashlight. That's cool. Flashlight in the dark. Wow, you can turn it on and off. They can come over and shine it in your eyes, and give them something like that. Today, you see children get, their iPads, and I saw this little guy with an iPad. I think he was 2, in his high chair with the kid programs. And this little guy knew how to work that thing. He was showing me how to work it. He knew, push, you just push, slide, push. And I'm there, whoa, this is another world. He was really impressive. That kid knew that iPad. Scary even. Unbelievable. It's not all good either, but I'm just saying I was impressed at his knowledge of how to work that thing. Okay, things like sitting down with them and coloring, helping them draw a picture, and don't be surprised if the picture they draw represents the trauma that they experienced, because that's actually quite normal. And these kind of things reduce the child's sense of helplessness, because you're giving them back a sense of control of their world, and that's what they need. And then there's a point here, avoid parentifying the children. This would be for an older child. In other words, let the child be a child. Don't be putting a lot of responsibilities on a little person like you are responsible to take care of your 2 younger siblings, or that kind of thing. That's not a good thing. So their responsibility should be age appropriate, and especially after what they've been through, all these other things should be incorporated to help them cope, bring back their sense of stability.
How does that relate, say, to, in Spanish culture or some other culture where people do take care of? I mean, how would you apply that? Church members
Yeah,
doing
I would
that?
just say it's not a perfect world. And as much as is possible, there are some situations that are just not good. It's the way it is. You adjust. You do what you got to do. You survive. And, yeah. Hmm.
Actually
Yeah.
met someone who actually took care of, there was something very tragic, but I never said anything. And very responsible, and he took care of his two younger sisters, and got a job, everything, did everything. But he didn't want the authorities to take his sister and brother away. And I
Yes.
thought, wow. And why he was sharing it and why he shared it with me, I can't remember exactly. But it was at the point where it had already happened, years had gone by, and it was a story they were telling to this group of people, and I was there. And I thought that was amazing.
Well, it is amazing, the living conditions that some people endure, and I suppose if that's all they know, it's not as bad as someone who is exposed to those for the first time. Just one little story. I remember visiting, I got a name from someone. I went to visit this man. It's an area called Suburbio. It's out in the poor section of Guayaquil, and it was a typical Guayaquil day with the sun, it's just a little bit south of the equator. It's 3 meters above sea level. It's plenty hot and humid. And I just remember, I met this man. I was going to pray for his little boy in bed, high fever. And I just remember walking into that house with a tin roof. And I remember just sitting on the bed talking to the father and praying for the girl. But I remember I had such a headache because it was so hot in that house. I couldn't, there's a word in Spanish, insoportable. It was, what would be insupportable, but meaning, what's the English word? Thank you. Unbearable. It was unbearable. And I just walked out of there like crying out to God. Like, God, these are inhumane conditions to live in. This little child has a high fever in a house that's over 100 degrees in there. And I just left with a sense of, like, oh God. And, but people live that way. It's amazing. And we cry out to God and we ask for mercy for people. So, okay, so then finally, communicating, number 5, communicating with children following trauma. So how then should we communicate to them? A crucial element in helping a child cope is communicating with the child about the events that have taken place. So rather than avoid the subject, it's like maybe they need a simple explanation of what happened and some kind of reassurance that you've taken measures so that they don't have to worry about that happening again. We can't promise, we can promise, but some things we can. And so that is very helpful. So talk about it, explain it to them, because that would help them immensely, give them a sense of understanding. Oh, that's what happened. Oh, that's why it happened. And now if we do this, okay, then that won't happen again. You can imagine that would be very helpful. Parents should listen to what the child says as well as what the child doesn't say. And of course, watching their behavior plays a part in that. If the child does not talk about the traumatic event, it doesn't mean that he isn't thinking about it. So that's why it's good to kind of draw out their thoughts. And listen to children. Pay attention with your ears and eyes. A child also communicates through behavior. Another point, be truthful with children. In the long run, it will be confusing to the child if you kind of make up something and it's not reality. It won't make sense later on because it's not true. And tell the child in a gentle way while offering support for the child. It's just, common sense. Be loving and kind, explain it in terms that they can understand. And that would go a long ways. On the other hand, don't tell the child more than they need to know. well, okay, well, it was 10:30 and I was going 30 miles an hour, but the speed limit is 25. And it's like, don't tell them more than they need to know. Or don't tell them, like, yes, this happened, but they don't know that the person in the other car from that accident, lost their leg. Do they need to know that? No, they don't. They need to know what happened to them in their car. There are details of a traumatic event that the child does not need to hear. Answer their questions. Encourage them to ask questions. Do you have any questions about that? What do you think about that? Do you have any questions? Are there things that haven't been answered that you think about? Can we talk about that? And by the child asking questions, the adult gets a feel of how the event has impacted him and how he interprets it. Maybe he's thinking things that aren't even true about what happened. And as they talk about what they're thinking, you go, oh, no, that didn't happen, or that's not how it was. So you'll only know that by letting them talk about it. When parents answer questions, they undo many faulty conclusions children may draw based on lack of understanding and based on their magical type of thinking, because little children have magical thinking, like the moon and the car. Daddy, the moon's following us everywhere we go. You go, yeah, it seems that way. It's really not, but avoid making false promises. Parents should tell the children the steps they are taking to ensure the child's safety. In other words, what we already said, so that it's not going to happen again. A family robbed should talk about, okay, there's a good traumatic situation. You come home, the house is ransacked, the things that are worth something are gone, and there's the little boy, and he's next to his mom and hears her scream, and there's the dad frantic and running, oh my goodness, and it's like, oh my, this is my house. What happened? And so, so what's a good thing to tell the child eventually? Get the house back in order, calm the child down and say, you know what Mommy and Daddy did? We have an alarm system now, and we changed all the locks on the door because somehow someone got a key to our house. I mean, if that's what happened. We changed all the locks on the door. Look, see, there's a new key. Without this key, you can't get in there, and no one else has this key but Mommy and Daddy. You go, yeah, that's right. Right? That's all they need to know. It works, and it's true. And then let's say a fire happened. Aren't fires horrible? My dad was a fireman, and I remember as a kid him coming home and smelling like that horrible smell of smoke of a house that was just on fire. It was a terrible smell. And I would always be concerned about, before I went to bed, I'd look at the stove, make sure everything was off, and make sure, I just like, I'll do all I can, make sure my house doesn't burn down. And, iron unplugged and everything okay, kind of look things over. And my dad's a fireman, but a lot of those times he was working at night, so what good is a dad who's a fireman who's not home at night? Because he's putting out someone else's house that's on fire. Oh, boy. Yeah, so what could you do for a child? Let's say part of the house caught on fire, and the child is traumatized. Oh, my goodness, maybe it's going to catch on fire again. What could you do to reassure the child? And maybe we got a few minutes left, so now I want you to take the information and create a scenario. Maybe it can be the house caught on fire, and now the child is frantic about it's going to catch on fire again. Or you go on a trip somewhere and the car runs out of gas. You're stranded on the side of the highway, and it's really frightening for the child. What happened? Oh my goodness, what's wrong? And so why don't you get in small groups and create a scenario, with a child. Maybe you know of a story. Maybe you can tell your own story. When you were a child, how you were traumatized, and what now in retrospect, what should have been done to help you, whatever. You got 10 minutes, so just get in a group and create a scenario. And for Extension School, that is the end of the class. And so enjoy your group talk and see you next time.